sometimes when you bring the thunder, you get lost in the storm.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. Today we're going to be talking about the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, a Chicago Cubs affiliate that plays in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Later on in this episode, I'll be speaking with Jason Klein of Brandiose, and I will be speaking with Baseball by Design's wildlife correspondent, Ranger Amy Burnett, and of course, Dan Simon will be here with one of his Studio Simon Stumpers. Right now, I am so pleased to be joined by the Myrtle Beach Pelicans team broadcaster, Sam Wiederhaft. Sam, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm super excited for the conversation.
You guys are dealing with some weather there. It's been sort of raining on and off. You know, you're the team broadcaster, but you're also pulling tarp as well. So that's I guess it's all hands on deck in a situation like that.
It's a full team effort. When you play in Myrtle Beach, there's a lot of weather stuff that happens, kind of on the coast. So you got to be ready for anything. And we got to be ready at a minute's notice.
This might seem like a real obvious question, but I'm gonna start with the basics here. Why is a team in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, called the Pelicans?
Well, yeah, I think it's it's kind of self-explanatory when you come here because there's pelicans all over the place. And the funny thing is that the ones that are native to Myrtle Beach are brown pelicans, but the one that's in our logo is a white pelican, just because I think it looks better. But I mean, they're all over the place when you come to Myrtle Beach, and it's just really fitting. It fits that beach vibe that we're trying to go for. And ever since the team's first year in 1999, that's what we've been called. And I think it's super fitting once you come here for a vacation, or if you're a local here, you see pelicans all over the place.
This is a name that has been around, as you mentioned, it's been around for a while, since 1999. This franchise has some serious history, and in fact was once the Durham Bulls. And so it's there's a lot of history to this franchise. I think it was just one season that this franchise played as the Danville 97s team, named for a horrible train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, having a team that's been around now for a quarter century. I mean, you guys had a 25th anniversary logo last year. That's an eternity in minor league baseball, right? Like, this brand has some real staying power. And I know that the logo itself changed. You went from like a sort of teal MB Pelicans with like a pelican swinging a baseball bat, or about to swing a baseball bat. Looks like he's going to be a little late on that swing if you're looking at the logo. That ball's a little close. If he's going to swing at that ball, he's a little late. But then the current brand, which was from like the mid 2000s, has this sort of serious bird, and it's this real classic, attractive identity. I will say I was in the team store earlier this season, went to a game there, and that team store is dangerous because you guys got a lot of beautiful gear, and it was pretty easy to drop a couple of bucks in there. But the getting back to my original question here, which is, this brand's been around for a long time, and to have the same logo for almost 20 years, to have the same name for a quarter century. How do you explain that, like, the staying power of this decidedly not wacky, not silly brand in a silly time in minor league baseball?
And that's what I love about this brand, and that's something we're really proud of as a team, is the Pelicans brand. Because you look out and you go to different minor league games, you go to major league games sometimes, and people are around wearing Pelicans stuff, and that just kind of shows you how strong the brand is. When our current owner Chuck Greenberg took over in 2006, that was one of the first things he did was just reemerge the Pelicans brand, and kind of bring the beachy vibe to it. And you mentioned the logos and the new colors taking over for what was, a teal and black original color scheme to what we're at now with the blue and the gold and the white. So that was the first thing that he wanted to do, was kind of set that beach tone within the brand. And we've come out with other brands throughout the years. Like right now, I'm wearing our Palmetto State red, white, and blue hat. We've got our regular Palmetto State. We've got our Pirate Pelican, which is a really strong brand that people love. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a wacky time with some wacky names, and that's what I love about the Pelicans brand so much, is because it fits this area so well, and it's really strong. It's really recognizable. So why go away from that?
The Copa brand is also really beautiful. You guys have a terrific Copa brand that ties in directly with the main identity of the team. It's the sort of a differently stylized Pelican, and I think just Los Pelicanos, right, is the Copa brand there.
Yeah,
The
Pelicanos de Myrtle Beach.
Pelicanos de Myrtle Beach. So, Myrtle Beach is a pretty distinctive community. I had to sort of laugh at myself because we were there recently. We went to Charleston for one game, and then the next day we were in Myrtle Beach. And it had been a long time since I had been in South Carolina, but I had been telling Anna Di Tommaso and Dan Simon, who I was traveling with, that I had been to Myrtle Beach and sort of knew some things about it, and realized as I pulled in that I had not been to Myrtle Beach. I had been to Hilton Head, which
Yeah.
is a decidedly different community. As a community, I mean, I go to the Jersey Shore every summer. I love the boardwalk and the miniature golf and the pancake houses and all that sort of thing. So, sort of doubling down on like bird life in a beach town, I think is sort of perfect for this brand. But there's a lot to play on in Myrtle Beach, right? Like, I mean, if you guys were going to do some alternate identities, you could really play on like the sort of preponderance of the beach culture there, not just the wildlife, but the culture. The alternate identity that you did decide to go with last year was the Pelosaurus Rex. What's the Pelosaurus Rex? How come there's a dinosaur alternate?
Well, a lot of people don't know when the dinosaurs were around the Earth, they used to come to Myrtle Beach to vacation. So
Oh,
that was
perfect.
no,
That's
that was
those short arms make body surfing really hard.
it's so hard. No, the reasoning behind that is because twice a year we have Dinosaur Night, usually in April, and then usually at the end of the year in August. And it's presented by Ed's Dinosaurs Live. He comes on and puts on a great show. And that's like one of our most popular nights of the year, and the kids love it. So we wanted to have a brand for kids, and we went with the Pelosaurus Rex, and we rolled out the jersey last year, and then we got a hat to go with it this year, and we wear those on our dinosaur nights, and it was a huge hit. I mean, the kids, like we thought, loved it. And I'm going around the ballpark before every game, and that brand is really strong, and people love it, and they're wearing it, and the colors are really bright. So that was kind of the direction and the idea with that one, and I think it was a great success. And when we rolled it out last year, we went out and shot a video, and I was dressed up as an archaeologist, and I was digging up dinosaur bones and all that, to kind of roll out the new look. And yeah, it's just, I mean, our front office here is so open to any ideas, and when something works, we go after it. So that was one of those things that we're really proud of.
I remember that video well when I was writing about this for sportslogos.net. I actually went back and sort of watched that and pulled some quotes out from it. So it's didn't realize that was you in the video, but now that you say that, I'm putting two and two together here.
Yeah.
Another alternate that you all have is, from a few years back, you were, I believe, the first team to do this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you had a deaf awareness promotion in which you put together a uniform. And the Sports Logos article on this was from July of 2018, where you had American Sign Language, hands in the form of American Sign Language, spelling out the word Pelicans on your jersey. And I believe that won some awards. What was the inspiration for that promotion and for that night?
Yeah, so that jersey is actually in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Our manager, Buddy Bailey's jersey, was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame after that inaugural one in 2018, and we're still doing it this year. We just had our sixth one not too long ago, a few weeks ago. But it all started with a family that had been coming to games that had somebody who was deaf in their family, and they came to one of our salespeople and talked to him about it and said, "Hey, this would be a really cool idea." And then it came to fruition, and the jerseys were a big part of it. We ended up coming out with a hat that's got a P in sign language as well. And I mean, being here for 4 years, that is one of the coolest nights of the whole season. Because obviously you got the jerseys, but you also have our fifth inning is the silent inning. So there's no PA, there's no music, there's just interpreters that are signing to the crowd what the PA would say.
Hmm.
The team also does hand signals when they hit home runs. So it's a really, really cool night, and to have a jersey in the Baseball Hall of Fame is just a really, really cool accomplishment for this team. And the Iowa Cubs rolled out a Deaf Awareness Night jersey this year as well, and it's something that I think really makes a big difference, and definitely brings awareness. It definitely does what it's supposed to do.
Well, and yeah, you mentioned that the Iowa Cubs are doing this. I saw that shortly after you all did it, the Paw Sox did it. The erstwhile Pawtucket Red Sox, now obviously the Woo Sox. When you see that, do you think, oh, good, we started something, and the we're raising awareness in other communities, or is there kind of also like, hey, that was our idea?
No, no, there's no way. I wasn't here when it first started, but I know that, this front office is proud of, just being able to be able to do that. And now seeing it with other teams, it's just really cool that, they're also taking on the initiative of doing, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's something that, we hope that everybody can embrace.
The other Cubs affiliates that are out there, two of them are straight up named for the Cubs. The Smokies have a very Cubs-ish brand. And so, of the four affiliates for the Cubs, the Pelicans are really the only one that have a distinctive brand that is all their own that you wouldn't necessarily know was a Cubs brand until you walked into the ballpark and you got to see the concessions that were the concessions down the right field line are a lot of fun because they're playing off of sort of Chicago based food. How much does that Cubs affiliation play into the work that you do as a team broadcaster? I think I see right now you're wearing a T-shirt that has listed the four places where the Cubs affiliates play, right? Iowa, Tennessee, South Bend, and of course Myrtle Beach. How much does that play into the work that you do?
I mean, it's huge. We have a, great connection with the Cubs, and every year we go out in January to the Cubs convention. We go do some interviews there, meet with some fans, and that's just a great way to kick off the year.
Yeah.
And then we go to spring training every March, and we interview some of the former Pelicans that are up with the big club now, and get to watch some games and do some really cool stuff there. So us and the Cubs have a great connection. We started in 2015, was the first year of being a Cubs affiliate. And I mean, just the whole, Cubs fans are very invested not only in the big league club but also in the minor league action and what's going on down there. So that makes my job really cool because people actually care about what's going on, at the single A level. So just last night, we had a Sunday night game and we got to broadcast on the Marquee Sports Network, which is the TV home of the Cubs, and we have a great relationship with them. So, it's huge. And we get a lot of Cubs fans that come in vacation in Myrtle Beach and they love watching their minor league affiliate here. So, that's all I know. I know we were a Braves affiliate and a Rangers affiliate before. But, being with the Cubs, I think is really special. And it's, we all every team in the organization definitely has a bond, and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And I've talked with the broadcasters up and down the system. We're all really connected. But yeah, it's a special affiliation that I think fans here really enjoy watching.
Okay, so you live and work in a beach community. I don't know what part of the country did you grow up in?
Yeah, so the exact opposite coast, right? So I grew up in California, in Orange County, California. So I lived there for, over 14 years, and I moved to the Midwest in Indiana, and I was there for 8 years, and I've been here for 4. So I'm very, established. I kind of know the beach communities on both sides of the coast, and yeah, I love it here, man. It's awesome.
Okay, so I've got some as a lifelong beach goer myself. I go to Ocean City, New Jersey, where we've got a great sort of like boardwalk culture, beach culture. I got a couple of questions for you about living in Myrtle Beach. First of all, your favorite boardwalk food.
Favorite boardwalk food. I mean, I'm just a huge cheeseburger guy in the first place. And I think
Nice.
that when I was growing up in California, there was a restaurant right on the beach called the Stuffed Surfer in Newport Beach. And we'd always go there and get burgers from there. So like there's nothing better than getting a burger and hanging out on the beach and eating that. So I'd say that's probably my favorite. I'm not really super into like the deep fried like Oreos and all that crazy stuff. Like I haven't really tried all that. So I'm more of a traditionalist when it comes to boardwalk food.
Nice. If you're at the beach, are you on the sand or in the water?
I'm typically in the water.
Nice.
I love going in. Like just last weekend, we went to the beach and I was in the water for a majority of the time, and I did pay the price because I got pretty sunburnt.
Oh
So
yeah.
the sunscreen just washed right off, which is
Yeah.
really unfortunate. But yeah, no, I go out in the water. I body surf. When I was a kid, I used to boogie board in California. Never learned how to surf. That was kind
Mm-mm.
of a regret of mine because I do kind of want to go back and do that. But
It's never too
uh,
late.
you're right. The problem is in Myrtle Beach, the waves just aren't very big.
Right.
They're smaller and the water's warm, but you just don't have those big waves that you can
Yeah.
ride. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I love being in the water.
That's sort of a parallel experience for me, right? Like when I was a kid, I would boogie board, and then when I finally figured out body surfing, I would do that. They actually had like I always see this down in Ocean City. Like they have like a surfing school that you can like go learn how to surf. And the waves are not big in Ocean City, but the beaches are longer. Like it's a more gradual slope in Ocean City. So you've got, waves that are long enough to actually like get a surf ride on. But I'm not a surfer. How about
Yeah.
one last thing on the boardwalk? What about the rides? Are you an amusement fan or no?
Absolutely.
Nice.
When I was a kid in California, we used to go to a theme park called Knott's Berry Farm. We had season passes out there, and I'd go on, all the big rides all the time. It was great. There's a few rides here at the Myrtle Beach Boardwalk. The one that I have not been on, or at least it's been a long time. I'm not sure if I've been on it before. I might have been on it when I was a kid, but the Sky Wheel is that big Ferris wheel that's like
Yeah.
right in the middle of the Myrtle Beach Boardwalk. And I do want to go on it again because if I've been on it before, I don't have a memory of it. But there is one called a slingshot, and it's these two like towers with the bungee cord, and then it shoots you right up in the air.
Yeah.
And I did that one a couple of years ago with one of my coworkers, the Pelicans, and I mean, I'm dying to go on it again. Like it was just so fun, and yeah, I mean, any sort of amusement like rides, I'm always super into. I love that feeling of just like going super fast and going up and loops and all that stuff. So I mean, Myrtle Beach has plenty of it.
I said that was my last question, but I had one more just because we were chuckling on the way into town, like how many pancake houses there were, like passing all these pancake houses in Myrtle Beach. Do you have a favorite pancake house? And if so, is there a favorite meal there?
That could be an alternate identity right there. Is the
It
Myrtle
really, really could.
There's plenty of them, man. They are up and down. I went to one actually yesterday. It's called Blueberry's Grill.
Oh,
It's not really a pancake house, but it's a breakfast spot. So I had a really good meal there, and that's a really popular spot in Myrtle Beach. Everybody always talks about blueberries. So
oh,
went there, had some eggs, sausage, like typical, hash browns. So I mean, I don't know. And then I mean, there's a whole bunch of Waffle Houses too. So
yeah.
go to Waffle House and have a couple of waffles and sausage. But yeah, nothing too crazy. If I'm going to a pancake house, I just like the buttermilk pancakes. I don't mess with the chocolate chips or banana or whatever people are getting on their pancakes nowadays. I'm just a simple buttermilk guy. So that's probably the go-to.
Kids and their wacky pancakes these days. So
Yeah.
Sam, thank you so much. This has been a ton of fun. Really enjoyed the ballpark. It was a beautiful ballpark. Great team store. I mean, if you're into merch, man, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans team store is a great one. But then just the concessions, the ice cream helmets, generous portions in ice cream helmets, and I did of course get the Myrtle Beach Pelicans helmet for the collection out there. So the team's well represented. Sam, thank you so much. This has been fun. Where can people find you? Where can people find the team on social media, online, etc.?
Sure. Twitter, you can follow me at Sam_Wiederhaft, kind of a weird last name. So it's WEIDERHAFT. Instagram is at Wiederhaft, my last name. Twitter for the Pelicans is at Pelican Baseball. Instagram is Pelicans Baseball. Facebook, YouTube, Myrtle Beach Pelicans. We got a lot of cool stuff coming out with player features and highlights and just really cool stuff done by our production team. Throughout the year. But Paul, I really appreciate it. I've been looking at sportslogos.net for a long time. So it's been one of my favorite websites.
Well, it is a ton of fun to write for that website, and because I get to have these great conversations and learn all about minor league baseball logos. So this has been fun. The Twitter handles and the Instagram handles will be in the show notes if you didn't follow Sam's spelling there. Sam, we will catch you next time we're in Myrtle Beach for some pancakes and some baseball and some amusements.
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right. Thank you, Sam. Hey, everybody. I am so psyched to have my friend Jason Klein from Brandiose back on the podcast. I love talking to Brandiose about the work that they do. Jason, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one.
We are getting into the Wayback Machine today. This must be
Way back.
from the Plan B days, right? This was before you
That's
were all
right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Old school.
2007, this Myrtle Beach Pelicans logo was unveiled. A different time for minor league baseball branding,
Yeah.
for sure. When you look back on this logo, it has certainly withstood the test of time. I went to a Pelicans game this year. I
Yeah.
raided the gift shop. There's a bunch of great merch there. Got a T-shirt, got a cap. When you look at this logo, 16, 17 years later, what are your thoughts? When you think about this process, might you have done something differently, or what do you think about now when you see this?
Well, the process was interesting because we worked with Chuck Greenberg, who's the owner or the managing partner, I should say, and you know, Chuck is very specific with his visions, which is great, because the worst thing is someone's like, "Oh, I like it when I'll see it." He knew exactly what he wanted.
Yeah.
And a couple of things was he, has his foot was in the Major League Baseball world and the Major League Sports world, and so he was like, I really want to do something that feels a little more major league. They had been the Pelicans before. There was old logos. They had teal, so there was this sort of like aquatic, and Myrtle Beach is a lot of fun. If you've been to Myrtle Beach,
when we were there, it was mini golf. It was
right,
pancake houses, the boardwalk, all that stuff.
Yes. And so we really wanted to celebrate that, and we really wanted to keep it sort of nautical. And one of the things too was so many people come to vacation in Myrtle Beach and then end up going to a game. So there's a lot of conversation about how do we make, if you're coming for, let's say, 5 days and you're coming from Pennsylvania or New York or somewhere in the Carolinas, how do we make this one of your nights? Right. So how do we really celebrate this? So yes, it's a celebration of the locals and the local community, but we really thought a lot about this idea of how do we get people to make this their sort of vacation team. Right. So in doing that, a lot of that was we were at the ballpark visiting, and you don't see this a lot in minor league baseball, but it was like, all right, everybody from Pennsylvania. Right.
Yeah.
And if you're from New York, right. So that was really, it sort of tapped into this idea that this was a vacation team, if you will. And how do we make this part of the vacation lineup? And so with, the visual imagery, the colors, making it feel like you were on a vacation, celebrating all the things that not only locals love, but also, what people coming on vacation would. So, there's a lot of neon signs, kind of has that old school vibe there. I think Orlando in some ways is the only thing I can sort of compare it to.
Yeah.
But in the classics, sort of Jersey Shore, Coney Island, it's Myrtle Beach, Orlando. It's got that kind of vibe. So you'll see the neon in the script. I think Chuck was a Cardinals fan too, so there's a little nod to the Cardinals. The bird on the bat, and the UCLA blue, as it was called at the time. No other minor league baseball team at the time had used that specific shade of blue. And it was, that was like, we knew what that blue was. And that was as I remember, that was like the sort of Herculean task, was like figure out how to nail this color, because it was available and being used for, I think, only for UCLA at the time. It might be also called Air Force Blue. There's discrepancies, but long story short was, I think it was only used for UCLA, and it was like, hey, how do we bring those colors in, because they are reminiscent of Myrtle Beach. It gives you that vibe, and it also can allow us to bring in a color that had never really been used before in minor league baseball or Major League Baseball.
Yeah, this is the only Cubs affiliate that doesn't have a brand that is really tied specifically to the Cubs, right? Like you've got the South Bend Cubs and the Iowa Cubs, and then the Tennessee Smokies has a very Cubs-ish brand here. So this one stands alone in terms of the Cubs affiliates. The ballpark there had, they had like the concessions with the Chicago food and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that this one stands on its own and is not one that the parent club, exerted any influence over, for sure, that it's uniquely Myrtle Beach, nothing to do with Chicago.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a rare case. I'm not a huge fan of trying to gain legitimacy by simply like adopting the parent team club, and I think that's kind of how we got into, all kinds of weird, unrelated things like, the Honolulu Yankees. It's like, wait, what?
Right.
Right. That's not a real team. Fact checkers, not a real team. But this idea or like I don't know, like the Wichita Metropolitans, it's like, wait a second here. This is not adding up. And this is, again, my perspective, and there are definitely exceptions to the rule for various reasons. But I think that the hometown deserves their own hometown identity. They deserve to be proud of, it should be about the fans, not about the players. If I may dare to say, it should be about the fans, not about the players. And when the parent team club says, hey, these players are going to be the next so-and-so, awesome. But, my daughter's not really into baseball. She's into gymnastics and, and dance and stuff like that. And, she could care less about a Major League Baseball team. But, if something celebrates her hometown and makes her feel like, oh, I love being in this community, she's going to say, Dad, let's go. Let's go.
Yeah.
I want to see it.
Absolutely. This character, it's a very stern Pelican, right? Like, and it was, when I think about the timeline, 2007 was 1 year before you guys did the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs, right? Like,
yeah.
So it was right on the cusp of this sort of current era of minor league baseball. Was it Chuck who wanted to take the more serious approach?
100%. Yeah. Definitely more serious. I think Casey and I joked internally. We called it taxidermy. Like, it's like, oh, no, this has got to be super realistic. Like, how realistic? Like taxidermy realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The color palette really is like very beachy. I bought like the light blue cap with the yellow brim.
Awesome.
Just really enjoy like the sort of muted colors. Very beachy.
Thank you for your support, by the way.
Hey, I am happy to do it. We were we rated that team store pretty good. It was
Please raid.
Yeah, and that's become one of my favorite hats. And in fact, Anna DiTommaso, the host of the Baseball Bucket List podcast, bought the same hat that I did, and I was wearing it around, and she said, I hope that hat looks as awesome on me as it does on Paul. And I was like, Anna, it does. It's a great hat.
Yeah. No, and it's good. For this concept, Chuck was right. Like, it needed to be this. And I think, as we talked, I don't know if we talked yet about Frisco, but, Frisco's same, managing partner in Frisco, same thing. It's got to look like Teddy Roosevelt. Like, it's got to be, we're more realistic for particular reasons, business goals, that sort of thing, that warrant it, rather than like, irreverence.
Right. Absolutely. Well, it's really fun. Like I said, it's a brand that I really enjoy quite a bit. Loved going to a game there, seeing it on the field. And like I said, I'm a little poorer I am cash poor, but gear rich right now after visiting the Pelicans.
I mean, fanatic rich I'm gonna go with fanatic rich.
There you go. Jason, thanks very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We'll talk to you again soon. We got some more episodes coming up with brands that you've worked on. All right, everyone, welcome back. I am very pleased to welcome back to the podcast our very own wildlife correspondent, Ranger Amy Burnett. We're going to be talking, of course, about the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, but I think it's notable to point out that we're recording this episode live, or although I guess not really live because everyone's listening to this on a recording. But at the moment, we're both alive and we're recording live, and we are in Tokyo, Japan, which is kind of wild.
Yeah.
You've learned all sorts of words this past week. You've learned a lot of other things too. You learned the Hanshin Tigers fight song.
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun.
And also we taught some children at the baseball game how to boo. And
I was mad at you.
That was a ton of fun. I don't think their parents loved it.
No, they did not want their kids to boo.
But apparently they were already chanting. They were apparently not being polite, chanting unpleasant things toward the section of fans cheering on the Chunichi Dragons, who are not a great team and lost both of the games that we attended.
I believe the translation was, the Hanshin Tigers are definitely going to beat the Dragons. That doesn't seem like it's mean to me.
When the umpire was squeezing the Tigers pitchers and I booed, The kids loved it, and they asked me to do it again.
Of course they loved it.
The one kid said in English, "Do it one more time." We're going to talk a lot more about. We're going to do a whole episode on
Don't miss that one.
It's coming soon, but I just figured it was, let's mention the fact that we are recording this episode in Japan. Not only because that's a cool thing to mention, because, hashtag humble brag, but also, hey, the show must go on, right? Like every Tuesday at 2:30 a.m. Mountain Time, an episode drops.
Yeah, I'm drinking sake, and Paul's like, let's do this episode. And I'm like,
we got to do the recording.
We're supposed to be talking about pelicans.
We're supposed to be talking about pelicans, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. First of all, the elephant in the room, we've already mentioned it on this podcast once, but let's get your official wildlife perspective on this. The pelicans in Myrtle Beach, native to Myrtle Beach, and Sam Wiederhaft already owned up to this. Mm-hmm. They should be brown pelicans, not white pelicans.
Correct.
Though
the bugs me to no end.
The Myrtle Beach Pelicans logo is a white pelican,
and it should be a brown pelican.
Yeah, just artistic license, I guess.
I think it was easier for them. I think that white stands out more. It made for better merch.
Okay.
And brown is not as pretty, maybe, as white.
Brown is not as pretty as white. There's very few.
And it doesn't show up on hats as well as a white.
I think that's
bird.
True.
So I'm thinking, and they couldn't exactly make a brown pelican blue. So they're like, all right, we have a few choices here.
Unless you're really owning the color brown, like the Cleveland Browns or the San Diego Padres.
It just doesn't lend itself as well to like a cartoon character, I believe.
So what's the difference? Like besides the color, is there a difference between a white pelican and a brown pelican?
So white pelicans are much bigger.
Oh.
So almost 2.5 feet wingspan bigger.
Okay.
White pelicans. And so, in fact, white pelicans have the second largest wingspan of any bird in North America.
The second largest wingspan of any bird in North America.
Yeah. So 9 feet is the wingspan.
So as a baseball player, it'd be pretty good. They'd be able to reach those fly balls.
Yeah.
Really, dive for a ground ball.
If I said go gadget arms, I'm really dating myself.
Yeah, I think probably most listeners of this podcast know go gadget arms.
That's pretty good then. So you want to guess what the first largest wingspan is? North American bird?
I'm gonna guess the California condor.
You got a bing ding ding ding.
Oh, I wonder if Dan would give me credit for a Studio Simon stumper right there.
Yeah, I bet he would.
Yeah.
So very, very large bird. And generally brown pelicans are seabirds, and generally white pelicans are freshwater. So like lakes and streams rather than something that you find on Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. But in general, regardless of whether it's a white pelican or a brown pelican, why would a minor league baseball team choose a pelican as its mascot?
I was thinking about that, and I think the reason, and I'm just surmising here, that the reason they chose a pelican for their mascot is that they're kind of charismatic. I wouldn't say that they're sexy or anything, but they're kind of like lumbering and slow and funny. They're comical. They're big and they're kind of goofy on land, not so much in the air. And when they're diving, they are like an Olympic athlete when they're diving. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Oh.
But they are comical, charismatic. I think they made a good choice. They're kind of fun.
Okay. They look on land certainly like they're marionette dolls being operated by like 3 fighting kindergartners.
That's a real good visual. I like that.
Yeah.
That's great.
But you said they're like Olympic divers in the water. So let's hear it. You said we'll talk about it later. Let's talk about it sooner.
Yeah. So they can spot a fish under the water from 60 feet up. Can you imagine?
Olympic divers are very well known for their ability to spot fish.
No, their diving ability is like Greg Louganis' ability to dive. So I'm talking about brown pelicans here, which are the ones that are Myrtle Beach.
Of course.
And they can spot a fish and then boom, down into the water and just boom. They go from so high up and spot that fish and they actually stun the fish with their beak. And the fish is like, whoa, and then they scoop it up in that gular pouch.
Gular pouch.
Yeah.
Spell that word for us.
Gular.
Gular.
You learned a new word?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gular pouch.
It sounds like something you would squeeze into your mouth during a marathon to keep your energy, to keep your electrolytes up.
Gular pouch. So gular is used for other animals too. So when you're talking about like a tortoise,
they
have a gular horn. some tortoises have like the big Galapagos tortoises will have a gular horn, the males especially. They use that to flip over their opponents in the slow speed, wrestling matches that tortoises sometimes do when they want to kill another tortoise.
Also useful in the Olympics.
Also useful in the Olympics.
Yeah. By the way, with the 2024 Olympics just happening in Paris, Greg Louganis was a real timely reference.
I'm dating myself here. But it's I was trying to think of an Olympic diver. Anybody who knows one that I should have used, go ahead.
Telephone lines are open right now.
Chime in.
Call
on
now.
Twitter, please. But so they use these gular pouches to scoop up fish, and they can store a bunch in their pouch. And I was wondering, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
But they stun these fish and then they scoop them up in sort of like a little net, and then they just eat them. But the crazy thing about pelicans is they eat their fish alive.
Oh.
So they stun them, but they don't kill them.
Oh no.
So it's not so they're kind of mean when you think.
Yeah, how gruesome.
But like sharks, at least they kill them and they chomp them. But
confirms my theory that nature is terrible.
These are just they're just, if you ever watch a pelican scoop up fish, you'll see at close range, you'll see these fish that are flopping around in the gular pouch, and they're just like, no, boom.
Oof. I'm picturing baseball players with like a big wad of big league chew in there.
It kind of is.
Do minor league baseball players have a gular pouch for gum?
Some of them do. Have you seen them? And it's in their cheeks instead of in their throats.
Oh, okay.
But you always ask me, why would this animal make a good baseball player? And I think in this case, a pelican would make a really good baseball player because those pouches would, make a really great catching mitt.
Oh.
I think. So they're good at, catching fish and sort of holding them.
All right.
And so I can see that sort of translating into those pouches, grabbing those fish, grabbing a baseball. Imagine scooping up, in their pouch, and they probably wouldn't miss a lot. And they're flexible, like a little bit like a glove, has a little bit of a give to it. And they can, they don't store anything. They just catch it.
There's another episode coming up in the not too distant future of Baseball by Design about another Brandios brand, the Pensacola Blue Wahoos, big old fish. So my question to you is, who would win a fight, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans or a Pensacola Blue Wahoo?
Well, if it was small enough, definitely the pelican, because it would just swallow it whole.
Okay, very good. Ranger Amy, such a pleasure to have you join the podcast, as always, for the first time ever from a foreign country.
From Japan.
From Japan. We'll see you in an upcoming episode the next time we have a wildlife question for you.
Thank you for having me on. Let's go get some sake.
It is time once again for my favorite segment on this podcast, your favorite segment on this podcast. Dan Simon of Studio Simon in Louisville, Kentucky, is back with another of his Studio Simon Stumper trivia questions. Dan Simon, good morning. How are you?
Paul, I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing super well. At the time of this recording, I am on the cusp of leaving for Baseball Palooza. I have checked into my flight for Baseball Palooza. That's how soon Baseball Palooza is. We are less than 24 hours from Wheels Up.
And when you go on your Baseball Palooza trip, I am assuming you will be wearing logoed merchandise, T-shirts and caps. Yet today is one of the, maybe the first time I have ever seen you in a blank T-shirt. What gives?
I have 4 T-shirts, I believe, that don't have logos on them, or maybe just 2. And I have to wear my T-shirts in a rotation because I have so many of them that if I just wore my favorites, I would only wear my favorites, and there would be T-shirts that I owned that I literally never wore. And so I wear my T-shirts essentially on a loose rotation, and this one was just one whose turn had come up.
I have a question for you about all of your T-shirts.
Yeah.
I have found that regardless of what size T-shirt one might wear, let's just say one wears a large,
okay,
that not all larges fit the same.
Right.
And when I have been there with you when you have purchased a T-shirt in a minor league team store, and you don't try them on, you just buy your size and you're winging it.
Yeah.
Do you ever get them to your hotel room or get them home, put them on for the first time, and they don't fit you the way you want to fit, and they don't end up getting worn?
Not too often. I do have, I wear a size large, and there are times when the size large feels a little snug, and then there are times when the size large feels like it should be an XL. And what I find is it's not that they don't get worn, it's just that they get worn in sort of different circumstances. The ones that are a little baggier tend to get worn on the weekends. And I don't own any t-shirts anymore that are like too snug for me to wear. Though if I, am not careful on Baseball Palooza, that may not be the case by the end of that trip. So we'll have to see, because there's a lot of wings and beer on this trip. So I got to make sure I bring my running shoes with me. And speaking of my running shoes, hashtag humble brag, I ran a half marathon last weekend.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if one congratulates one for that, but I'm still duly impressed.
I will accept your congratulations for it. It went well. It wasn't the fastest one I've ever run, but I finished without the sweepers having to come, chase me off the course. They'll close these courses if you run too slow, or usually it happens to the walkers. If you go too slow, they'll come through and they'll be like, okay, you're not officially part of the race anymore, because we got to like open this street back up because the cars have been waiting for 3 hours. So if I can not finish last and not get swept off the road, then I figure it's a victory.
Okay, well, congratulations.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. Want to do a stumper?
Hey, Dan, let's do a stumper.
Okay, let's do it. Who are we doing today, Paul?
Oh, sorry. This episode is about a team that you and I have seen in person on our Anna, Dana, Paula, Amy Palooza trip, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. We were there just this summer, and we had a good time in the team store. They've got a lot of fun merchandise there. I really liked this ballpark. They're a Cubs affiliate, and it is they have like a food stand there with like Cubs themed or Chicago themed concessions. That was fun. I know this is not a Dan Simon brand. It's one that I like very much. I like this brand, and I got myself a t-shirt and a hat at that store. And most importantly, had a great time on a weekend baseball trip with you and Anna DiTomaso and Ranger Amy.
Yes, it was a great time. I enjoyed the stadium as well. I enjoyed Myrtle Beach. We stayed in a hotel right on the beach.
Yeah.
We had beers right on the beach.
That was a lovely afternoon.
Yes, it was. And even though I did not create the Myrtle Beach Pelicans brand, I like it as well. Brand, kudos to friends of the show, Grandiose.
Indeed.
So speaking of the Myrtle Beach Pelicans, perhaps not surprisingly, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans are not the first professional baseball team to go by the name Pelicans. There have been at least 7 others that have. Now this year, the Myrtle Beach Pelicans are celebrating their 25th season, which is speaking of congratulations, it's a milestone certainly worthy of celebration. But one city's baseball team was the Pelicans for more than twice that long, meaning 50 plus years. And so our studio Simon Stumper today asks, which was that city? Was it A, St. Petersburg, Florida, B, New Orleans, Louisiana, or C, Opelika, Alabama?
I am not familiar with Opelika, Alabama. St. Pete, obviously, I am familiar with. I'm going to assume that all of these cities had teams called the Pelicans, and my job is to suss out which one of them had it for 50 years.
You are correct. So sorry to interrupt, but yes, all 3 of those teams had a Pelicans team, professional baseball team in their city.
The one that jumped to mind as soon as you asked the question was New Orleans, because that is, in my mind, the most famous of the minor league baseball Pelicans. Shoeless Joe played for them.
Earl Weaver managed them.
Earl Weaver managed the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yes.
I am not familiar with a St. Petersburg Pelicans. I'm not familiar with the Opelika, Alabama Pelicans. The New Orleans Pelicans, I know existed and had some famous alumni. I don't know whether they were around for 50 years. They certainly had a classic logo. I love that old New Orleans Pelicans logo. One time I was in New Orleans and I went to a sporting goods store. And speaking of t-shirts, this is funny. They had an awesome New Orleans Pelicans t-shirt. And, it was mostly, like stuff from the basketball team. And it was, other sort of New Orleans sporting goods things. But they had this amazing New Orleans Pelicans t-shirt. But the only size they had was a 2XL. And I sat there just looking at it thinking, man, if I eat like a lot of Café du Monde beignets here, maybe I could fit in this t-shirt okay. But I decided not to get it. And I've always kind of regretted, like, I feel like I could have that t-shirt and maybe sleep in it or something. So
Did you actually have a beignet at Café du Monde?
oh, I had several beignets at Café du Monde, and they were life-changing. They were pretty amazing. It was and several of them were at 2 a.m., right? Like you're just walking around New Orleans at in the middle of the night, as one does, and you find yourself strolling by the Café du Monde, and you need to have some beignets. But Dan, all of this is to say, how could I talk all of this much about New Orleans and not say that it was the New Orleans Pelicans? I think I'm going to go New Orleans Pelicans. I know that Opelika and St. Pete had teams called the Pelicans. I'm not familiar with them. I am familiar with the New Orleans Pelicans, so I'm going with that.
And you have gone correctly.
Woohoo!
All of the other teams, all of the other cities that have had Pelicans teams have not lasted nearly as long as not just the New Orleans Pelicans, but also the Myrtle Beach Pelicans. The first New Orleans Pelicans team took the field all the way back in 1887.
Whoa.
And with the exception of a year or two here and there were New Orleans Pelicans teams until 1959.
Wow.
So we're talking 70 plus years.
Yeah. So Myrtle Beach has a ways to go before they catch them.
Right. And I also want to point out that the Pelicans name made a brief comeback in 1977 when the Tulsa Oilers, who were a AAA team, they moved to New Orleans just for that one season. And you know where they played? Take it one guess.
They played in the French Quarter. They played in the parking lot of Café du Monde.
Close. They played in the Superdome.
Holy smokes.
Can you believe there was a minor league baseball team that played in the Superdome?
That's wild.
But they then moved the very next season to Springfield, Illinois, morphed into a different kind of bird and became the Redbirds. So now, but I had mentioned that there were indeed, these other cities did indeed have teams named the Pelicans. The St. Petersburg Pelicans were a Florida State Negro League team from 1947 till 1953. And then also there was, I don't know if we've talked about it at all on this podcast. I know it came up on Anna DiTomaso's Baseball Bucket List podcast, the Senior Professional Baseball Association. It was, even though it was called the Senior Professional Baseball Association, it was just referred to as the Senior League for short. And that was former major league players for the most part, who were retired, but still could play. I believe that the age cutoff was like 37 or 38. That league lasted 1+ seasons. In 1989 and 1990, they ceased to exist about halfway into that second season. So they were the St. Petersburg Pelicans again. And you know what? I actually think Earl Weaver managed that team. The Opelika Pelicans played in the Georgia-Alabama League in 1913 and 1914. But in 1913, they were not known as the Pelicans. They were known as the O-Pelicans. One word, starting with the capital letter O, the O-Pelicans, and then lost the O for 1914 and became the Pelicans. There were also Pelican teams in Clearwater, Florida, Corpus Christi, Texas, New Iberia, Louisiana, and Panama City, Florida.
Pelicans, they're visually very appealing. A lot you can do with them, I think, for a logo, and certainly distinctive in terms of a sense of place. So, I can see how come they would be used. And now I kind of like, I want to find the baseball players who played for as many of the Pelicans teams as as possible. I want to find that the baseball player who played for the most Pelicans teams.
Well, I can tell you based on my research that a number of these teams, like I just mentioned, the Opelika Pelicans, they only played 2 seasons. Some of these teams only played like 1 season. So you're probably not going to have a lot of overlapping there.
Dan, thank you so much. This was another fun one. We are on a streak of fun Studio Simon Stumpers. I appreciate everything that you do to bring a stumper to the podcast every single week. The podcast would not be the same without you. So I really appreciate that. I hope you have a great rest of the week. I will see you on the other side of Baseball Palooza. You can find Dan's work, as always, on Instagram at studio_Simon. Dan, thank you once again. We'll see you next week.
I'll see you then.